to talk about this movie. And Joe and I kind of teased it at the end of the last episode or last week's show. But I want to like paint a picture of this though, is that, we've reviewed documentaries here quite frequently on Sleepless with Steve, even going back to the radio days. And, I think all three of us, we love a great documentary. I love HBO documentaries. I think HBO documentaries are some of the best in the game. And the thing about me is somebody who goes down a lot of weird rabbit holes about like history, like weird facets of history and pop culture. Like I really love documentaries that explore some like things like Action Park. But at the end of the day, though, I can read countless stories and watch videos of Action Park, but I'll never get the opportunity to experience it myself. Catherine and I just had the privilege of seeing the Blue Angels documentary in theaters last week, and that was a good watch. And part of the reason it's a good watch, I've never seen the Blue Angels, though, unfortunately, I've never seen them in person. But part of the reason it's a good watch is, and I'm thrilled by it, is because I don't have nearly what it takes to get off the damn ground. You know what I mean? I can't be a pilot. I can't fly a damn plane. So it's really cool to see. It's really cool to see the way, that they do these insanely intricate flights. But now with MoviePass, MovieCrash, here's something that I experienced firsthand, that Joe I know experienced firsthand. Did you have MoviePass, Dom?
No, I did not. I did not have MoviePass.
Okay, so you're the outsider looking in this equation.
Yeah, but I distinctly remember you guys just living on cloud nine when that shit was going on, man.
Dude.
Like, I was imitating, it was funny, I won't say his name, but it was last night when Catherine and I watched the movie. We watched this, and I was, because she didn't have it either. So I was explaining, I said, like, how, like, all like people our age, we're tapped into social media. We heard all about it and stuff like that. But I distinctly remember a conversation with one of my dad's close friends and explaining it to him. And, the boomer energy to try to decipher the logic in every situation. He's like, how the fuck do they make any money? I'm like, that remains to be seen. But right now I'm going to ride this till the wheels fall off. And that's exactly what we did. So the movie, directed by Muta Ali, basically chronicles the beginning of MoviePass, its explosion in 2017, and then it's crashing and burning in 2018, 2019. Essentially, though, it tells the origin story of this, and it's fascinating, too, because for as much as Joe and I covered this, we covered this story on WONC and Sleepless with Steve.
11 videos.
11 videos. Nice, nice.
And that's not including what we talked about even like on the reboot of this where it got relaunched.
We've really come full circle on like topics this year, haven't we? Dan Schneider.
It was like only watching this movie. It was like we only knew half the story. We've only seen half the movie. Because MoviePass did not start with the $9.95 a month, one movie, any theater, any day sort of gimmick. That was not the start of MoviePass. MoviePass began with Stacy Spikes, and then later, looking for his name here in my review really quick. I know
Chris Hamay.
Yep.
That's not, what's his last name? It's Hamay.
Oh, sorry, Hamay Wilkes, I think. Nope.
Watt. There we go. Finally, I'll do better next time.
Yeah, I watched the movie. I watched the documentary.
It was Stacy Spikes who started the app and started the website, the subscription service, and then linked up with Hamay Watt. And they joined forces together to try to get this thing off the ground. Now, originally it was $40 a month, and you can see as many movies in theaters. Now, they kind of plateaued around 20,000 subscribers, and also being two African-American men lacking capital, they had to go and find an outside investor or convince somebody to help run the company, which is where they got Mitch Lowe. And by the time most of us had heard and gotten MoviePass, Spikes and Watt were booted from the company. And then it was these two dickheads, Mitch Lowe and Ted Farnsworth, running the show. And Ted Farnsworth got the backing and the help of Helios and Matheson Analytics. That was a name we kept bringing up on the show because it's like they keep talking about, and we remember this vividly, they kept talking about how what's going to make this thing financially solvent is selling consumer data. But I think if we go through one of those 11 videos, we're going to find Joe and I talking about, is consumer data that valuable to offset $100 million in losses? Like that was another question I remember us or discussion of us having on the air back in the day too. So this documentary is 96 minutes, but it covers a lot of ground. We're going to dive into all of it. We've got the next 50 minutes or so to do so. I'll start with you, Joe. Your reaction to MoviePass, MovieCrash.
So my reaction, of course, was like, I mean, the minute I heard that this documentary was being made, I was like, oh my God, I have to see this. I have to find out like where it's premiering, if it's coming to movie theaters, wherever. When I found out it was coming to Max, I like immediately sent it to the chat. I'm like, we have to review this. Like, it's almost like an obligation at this point from how many times we made videos about that damn thing. Honestly, if you add up the views for all the videos that we did, it's probably well over like 11,000, 12,000 total views with the videos that we did covering MoviePass, which is pretty cool. But my initial reaction was to this documentary is a little disappointing in some ways, but overall I do think it's good. Where I found it, I'll start with the bad. Normally I don't want to do that. I'll start with the bad. Where I thought I was disappointed was I felt like the middle of this documentary, once it focuses on what Ted and Mitch Lowe start doing with the company, it wasn't as crazy as they were shaping it up to be at the start of this documentary, as well as the trailers. It was like, no, this is crazy. I mean, like, there's even an instance, I think the craziest it got for me was Ted Farnsworth was pitching MoviePass Air, where they wanted to start their own airline company. And I'm like, okay, that's insane.
And that's saying something when Dennis Rodman is involved too.
Yeah. They had Dennis Rodman at Coachella. Like, I mean, that's another crazy thing too. The fact that they like just were at Coachella and everything, that costs a ton of money. I think what I think what was lacking here, was the fact that we had Mitch Lowe in this documentary, but I felt like he wasn't utilized as much. And maybe the questions they asked him he didn't give the best answers. He didn't agree to answer certain questions, but I felt like we have him here, and maybe because, you know, we just got done reviewing BS High like a few months back, and when you had literally the man that documentary focuses on,
he was like a psychopath though.
Yeah.
Mitch is just regular, like just regular rich, just regular bastard rich.
And I don't mean to cut you off in the middle of your thing, but I'm just gonna say this too. I think that Mitch is just a corporate asshole. Number one. Number two, though, the other thing I think you have to remember, and it kind of it helped contextualize for me at the end, he's still awaiting trial. So I think there's a piece
I didn't think about that.
I think there's a piece of that he's awaiting trial, and this thing's going to get a lot of coverage. So that's where I'm not absolving him, but like I think that was hyper cognizant, and also why we don't get Farnsworth's opinion in this thing.
Okay, all right, maybe that's actually a good point. I didn't actually consider that, and I should have realized that too when it ends with the text about both him and Ted are waiting. Like,
there's a lot to take in with this movie. No,
there honestly is a lot.
I also just reminds me. I mean, like with the other documentary example I was going to bring up was, it's not the Netflix one, but there's two documentaries focused on Fyre Festival.
I was thinking that too.
Yeah, the Netflix one doesn't have the guy that was basically behind it, while the Hulu one does, and you kind of get like his input and everything. I think, like, you know, again, like the beginning of this movie really builds it up that it's gonna get crazy, like the Fyre Festival documentary almost. Only for when everything starts panning out. The only time I'm really like, you know, like having any emotions, like reacting to what's happening, is seeing what's happening to Stacy and Hamat. That was terrible. Like the fact that how bad is they had such a great idea, only for it to just be taken away by these two guys. And all I kept thinking the entire time while watching it is, damn, like, you know, if these two guys actually would have like stayed in charge, MoviePass probably would have never gone away. If they would have found like a good balance of like, hey, we can drop it to $9.99 a month so everybody gets like a taste of it, and then we find a new price or something, that probably would have been better. It sucks also seeing how many times Stacy and Hamat, like they came close with like CEOs of AMC, like Jerry Lopez, where he stepped down after some time. And he was going to be the guy to kind of help usher in MoviePass. And then when the new CEO came in of AMC theaters, he said, "Nah, we don't want to do that." Because damn, I mean, like, you know, you really, the beginning of this documentary where you're watching these guys explain how they came up with the idea, why they think this would be such a good idea. It makes so much sense, and it would help movie going. In fact, it did help movie going. I mean, we have a video of that on the channel too, about how much MoviePass has increased box office sales and, like, you know, and all this other stuff. But yeah, I mean, like, once you get to Ted and Mitch taking over, it's so crazy because it's just like you think you're gonna get like all these crazy stories, like, because they produced movies like Gotti, and Gotti's a terrible fucking movie. I hate to use our one F word, but there we go. They produced that. They made a good one, the animal one, the what's it called?
American Animals.
American Animals. Thank you. Yeah,
one of my favorite movies. One of my favorite movies that year.
That one was good. Too bad they didn't promote that like they promoted Gotti as much. You know, them being at Coachella, them having all these parties and these raves and all, buying out liquor of like a whole event. And you're just like, okay, but like what else? And then, like, you know, you feel like there should be more there. And it's like, maybe just the page hasn't been uncovered yet because, you know, again, maybe when they get to court, more stuff will start to turn up. Maybe once we get their accounts of everything, more stuff will start to turn up. But I don't want to make it sound like I didn't like this documentary. I have plenty of good things to say. I'm going to stop right here, though, since the timer just popped up, and I'm going to pass it off to Dom for his initial thoughts.
The number one thing you should take away from this documentary is that if you get bad leadership in charge, particularly external leadership, they are just nothing but parasites. This outsider capital, Hudson Bay, they're not tech bros, but they're just con artists, which can sometimes be tech bros, but they weren't even that. The number of times I forget which ones. Ted, the number of failed ventures when you see him pitching so many different products, it's not impressive. It's not a hustle. It's pathetic. It's pathetic. It's like
products you never heard of for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. It's like there's a point where you really are a confidence man to the umpth degree. And when they went from product to product, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know he had 2, 3, 4, he had 5 different ventures and they all went under, or rather and it's like, he never did. Honestly, the Fire Festival thing really is the perfect parallel. It's that same exact mentality, right? Parasites, absolute parasites. And when I was seeing some discourses like, man, this really shows the racism in like, how can the MoviePass situation be a racist thing? Oh, shit. I'm like, I remember during those years at the college station, we talked about the movie Hidden Figures, and that movie itself was very, very mid, right? It felt like a movie from like the 90s, to be frank. But damn, if the message there isn't exactly what this one is, where it's like, yeah, at no point did I know that there were literally both of the founders. It wasn't those two guys, even though they when they said in the interviews, like, yeah, I created this thing, like, go fuck yourself. I'll throw in another one there for the homies. Like, man, go to hell. I had no idea Stacy and Hame were at all involved. I didn't do that much digging. I probably would have learned that if I did. But still, and there's still millions and millions of people who remember MoviePass fondly and think it's actually really funny now seeing Stacy, who's currently at this moment in charge of the resurgent MoviePass, and they see like, oh, Stacy Spikes he's in charge of he's the CEO of MoviePass. They'll probably think he was the asshole if they don't know the story, right? Just reflexively. But no, honestly, and I was mentioning this earlier in the green room, but it really is amazing how the College Humor MoviePass CEO video actually is precise. It is spot on to what actually happened. Just complete balls to the wall, no plan. And honestly, I know once I figured that Ted was not going to make any appearance whatsoever in this documentary, I figured that it was like he didn't want to do it for legal reasons, or even not legal reasons, but rather he just didn't want to go on camera, right? But also probably for legal reasons. But man, it really seemed like Ted was the one who was living that Billy, what's his name? Billy Mitchell? Billy
McFarlane.
Billy
Yes.
McFarlane like life, where it's like, I finally made it.
Yeah.
I need this external validation. I don't feel any sympathy for this asshole whatsoever, but it is so interesting. His insecurity, it's so craven, his need for that lifestyle.
And Mitch Lowe is not
amazing.
innocent. We know this. Mitch Lowe's not innocent, but he was the perfect idiot. He was the perfect go along, get along guy. Like he was the guy that like George. I reference Carlin, I think, a ton on this show, but he was like George Carlin said. Every corporation or every business needs obedient workers. He said they need somebody who's just smart enough to run the numbers and do the work and run the books, but just dumb enough to not realize how fucked they're getting. And that was Lowe. Like, I'm not absolving Lowe. He's a lot to blame too, but Farnsworth was the orchestrator too. And it comes out at the very end. I feel like it's a spoiler, but it's really not. He's a stock promoter. That's all he was. He was like a pump and dump artist. You know what I mean? Like a pump and dump stock scheme artist. That's kind of what he was. It still is. He's a free man as of now, as of the release of this documentary.
Yeah. The best parts of this documentary, I mean, like I said, they are the moments with Stacy and Hamat that I think, like, they shine through here. Because when you get to hear their side of the story, which, like Dom said, I didn't even know that was like going on. I was like, wait. I'm like, these were the guys that actually made it. I actually thought it was Mitch Lowe and Ted Farnsworth for like the longest time. So actually getting like their side of the story, especially Stacy's. Stacy is like, he is the underdog here throughout the whole documentary. And every time something bad comes his way, you're just like, dude, I hope something comes around for you. Only, where you find out where he ends up, it's like, damn. But the other part that I loved about this documentary was seeing the point of view of the workers at MoviePass.
Yes.
And how they were constantly like, we don't know what the hell is going on. We don't know how this is working right now, because
we have hundreds of thousands of like support tickets to get to, people clawing at the door to get their shit done. Meanwhile, we can't afford extension cords, but also meanwhile, Ted is out at Coachella just partying.
We have to go to a bank to get pens.
That's incredible. This story could not be a more stark, like, just example of what capital does to a mother, son of a bitch, man.
I will say, like, even though I wasn't crazy about like the stuff we were learning about Mitch and Ted, like, I kind of felt like it's not as crazy as they were making it out to be. I mean, but it does, as to your credit, Dom, the message you brought up, it really does show that, like, you get two guys like this to be in charge of something like this, and it can go under so quick. Like, it really did show that at the very least, and it did give that whole message and that idea. It was just like, man, again, when this movie is starting out, I was like, damn, I'm really hoping like we really get into the meat and bones here, but it's like, maybe I just have to wait for like another documentary focusing on this. In
our closing couple of minutes before the break, I just really want to say, like, I love history, right? Or at least just loosely learning about history. And it's like, this is really like Emperor Nero just partying it up while Rome burns.
Yeah.
It is amazing how this work situation, right? And meant pretty much every other one, like 95% of other work situations in the United States, right? It's just dictatorial, right? If you think about it, your workplace, probably, unless you work in a cooperative, it's like a monarchy if you think about it, to some degree, right? Some dictatorial situation, and you really have no recourse except maybe social media, and because like HR works for the company, they don't work for you, really. So and like, bro, again, just the party atmosphere. Meanwhile, because I do work tickets at work, at my job, and it's like, I can't imagine hundreds of thousands. Meanwhile, it's like a dozen of us. That's it. And I need to, like, I'm a slave to this lack of extension cord. It's amazing. It's just, I was banging my head against the wall.
I think the one other point I want to make too is that, like, one of the saddest parts, I think, of the documentary is not only Hamay and Stacy getting ousted from their own company, but still retaining their stock. Still retaining
that
their
was
stock.
torture.
Oh yeah,
but it's frozen and they can't touch it for a year. And not only
it's good that rule is there. That rule is there for good reason, because of golden parachute shit. But
it is.
This is one of the few times where it's like, oh no, oh no.
And it was 80 million. I think they said it was $80 million valuation stock wise that their holdings when they got ousted, and they couldn't touch it for 12 months. And these jagoffs sunk the company in like 8, like after that. And then the stock.
If that ain't America, if that ain't America.
Oh God. I think I joked to Catherine. I said at one point they should play Only in America by Brooks and Dunn in this movie. You know, man, everybody gets to dance indeed. We will be back here in just a couple of minutes. Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube, continuing our conversation with MoviePass, MovieCrash. I do have a couple complaints. This documentary is not perfect. I do have a couple misgivings with it. Overall, as much as it tells a great story, we'll dive into that coming back in just a couple of minutes. Meanwhile, enjoy a clip from past Sleepless with Steve episodes, courtesy of Joe Viso here. Back in just a couple of minutes, live on Wednesday. It is Sleepless with Steve.
I'm in agreement with Steve. I miss going to the theater to see comedies, man. And it sucks that
and have it be sold out. So I'm going to buy it in advance.
Back and better than ever. It's Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube. We are talking MoviePass, MovieCrash. Probably going to dive in, probably end the show talking about some of our experiences with the app/subscription service MoviePass, but continuing on talking about the documentary. Joe, when you were talking about some of your criticisms at first, it's kind of what you led with. The one thing I was going to bring up, but then Dom hadn't went yet, so I wanted to give Dom obviously the floor to speak, and he said some great stuff as usual. I wanted to touch on when you mentioned the Gotti movie and stuff, and how you felt they didn't like maybe go into that too much or maybe glossed over the whole MoviePass Ventures thing. The one thing, and they might have mentioned it offhandedly, again, there was a lot to digest in this thing. They might have mentioned it offhandedly, but I don't think they really got they really got the funny part about this. When MoviePass Ventures came on the scene, the two movies that they quote unquote produced were American Animals, one of the best movies of that year, and Gotti, one of the worst movies of that year. So now that's one part of the humor of it, is that it's two totally different movies, two totally different stories. The humorous part of it, though, was, okay, so they funnel money in these movies to try to, get a venture and get more money. But the ironic part was, if you go and look, I don't know if they've released the figures for American Animals, but for Gotti, roughly 40 to 45% of that movie's theatrical ticket sales were from MoviePass. They were buying tickets to their own fucking movie.
Yeah.
That's essentially what
Sound
they were
of freedom
doing.
tactic.
No, they didn't have the Angel Guild to do that. They didn't have the Angel Guild to do that. No, the studio is actively doing it. Even like, it's the old joke of like studios buying movie tickets to like inflate the box office numbers. That was a joke, especially in the 70s and the 80s in the industry and stuff. So it's like, how did this movie make so much money? MoviePass was literally doing that. I was hoping that they would emphasize that, because I used MoviePass to go to Gotti and American Animals. And I remember even thinking, like, they're essentially paying me to go to this movie in so many words. So I thought that was funny. In so many ways. But the fact too, though, with MoviePass, MovieCrash, though, the one thing that, and it's not a criticism of style or a criticism of just construction. This is a pretty predictably structured documentary, though. It's got the talking heads, it's got the archival footage, it's got the news clippings, and it's got some sometimes really gaudily cheesy animation.
Yeah.
But that's not really what I'm getting at. The one thing that I thought was interesting that they didn't really develop on was that, so the first half of the documentary, the first third, is Spikes and Watt, Stacey and Hamay, talking about how they want to disrupt. They use that word a lot. Disrupt the industry, the movie-going industry and stuff. All the while, the whole reason they got Lowe and Farnsworth involved was because they plateaued at 20,000 subscribers, something like that. They plateaued and they weren't financially solvent yet. So there really wasn't they did not have an answer for how this was going to work and grow. And then they got the two worst people in on it, and then it sank the company. But I'm just they didn't even at pricing at $40 a month, they weren't making money. So there never seemed to be a plan in place to make this profitable, or a real vision, or if there was, we didn't get it in the documentary of how this was going to work, how they would achieve subscriber growth and financial growth simultaneously. Had the $9.95 a month thing maybe been what it probably should have been all along was a limited time lock-in promotion for people who get it. Like, if you subscribe this month, it's $9.95 a month for 6 months. That's probably what they should have done, but they kept it going because it was such a talking point, and the growth was outrageous. So that was the one thing. If I ever got to interview Stacey Spikes, I would ask him, like, what was your plan to make MoviePass financially solvent when Lowe and Farnsworth came on? What did you suggest that they closed the door on you and kicked you out of the room?
We might be seeing some of that right now, with whatever Stacey is doing. Stacey Spikes is doing with the relaunch, and when was that countdown? Was that 2 years ago? That big countdown of
it was
relaunch.
It was about a year and a half. It was Dom. I literally got into the beta a week before your wedding, and I used it to go see two. I used MoviePass beta to go see 2 movies. One was the oh my god, it's the Searching sequel or spiritual sequel. Missing, thank you. And then whatever we reviewed the week after that is what I
might have been 80 for Brady.
You know what, it was 80 for Brady. Those were the 2 movies I used for it, and then I canceled it, and I'll get into why I canceled it later. But yeah, it was about like a year and a half ago, I think, is like when that countdown started, and they rolled it out very slowly, the beta, and I got it like a week before your wedding.
Okay. All right.
Going off of your point, Steve, of like, what was going to be like, how would you stabilize it? I really do think they were trying to bank on like a theater backing them up with this, getting something like a powerhouse like AMC or Cinemark even.
No, I think they did say that actually in like, this is all dependent on someone giving us a bone, which is why they went to Ted and Mitch.
Yeah.
Because the AMC deal initially failed.
Yeah.
Because the CEO left, the CEO that was friendly to them, and then they brought in the current CEO,
Jerry Lopez, who was friendly with them, and he just stepped down at like the worst possible time before this deal went through. It was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, like, I'm glad you also said this, because this was the other, I swear to God, I'll say more positive things about this, because I actually did like this documentary. But I did feel like it is kind of a by-the-numbers documentary. With the animation sequences, how it's edited and everything, nothing really made me go, oh, dude, this is so well put together. Or like, man, it knows when to throw you a curve on like some new information being overturned. It really did feel like by the numbers. But yeah, I mean, I was talking about this earlier. Hearing the employees' point of view was great, but also hearing subscribers' point of view is even better. When you hear it from their thing and how some of them were giving the finger to the camera and everything, when we had to do the ticket verification, Steve's one of those people, or the guy that sent in poop in a box to like the office and everything. We're not one of those guys. Didn't do that at least. I loved it because it's like somebody says like, oh man, yeah, I saw 4 movies a month, man. I was having a great time, and all I thought to myself was, holy shit, Steve and I reviewed 2 to 3 movies a week. We outdid everybody in this documentary. Where was our due diligence, honestly, of getting interviewed?
It's like when someone says, oh yeah, I gamed for like 2 hours yesterday. Oh shit.
Oh god. I have a problem.
We were the ones when it's revealed at the end, and this was known, this has been out there, but it's revealed in the documentary. We were the ones they were trying to actively game against, because I remember a few times like trying to go see a movie, being in the literal parking lot, having to like try and update the app still doesn't work, force close the app, try it again. Like sometimes like 7 or 8 times, I'm like, I'm seeing this damn thing like through MoviePass.
And Steve, you're bringing up what kind of won this back for me was them exploring that side of the app, where it was an app that was eventually becoming something to turn against its users, the people that are subscribed to it. When they started uncovering, because that was what I was most interested about, because you and I covered this all the time. We talked about it where it's like, I couldn't go see Ant-Man and the Wasp because it was like, for some reason, I just couldn't get a ticket. And this was near the end of Sleepless during its radio show. The last movie I saw with this damn thing was Won't You Be My Neighbor. I couldn't see Jurassic World Dominion, if that was the correct one, right? Or is it something else? Lost Kingdom. There we go. Dominion was like 2 years ago or something. I couldn't go see Lost Kingdom with MoviePass because every time I tried to click on a showtime, it said, oh, try again later. Oh, man. And this was also during a time where they had surge pricing, where it's like, if I wanted to go see this movie at 7 p.m., I had to pay $1.99 extra for my subscription to go see it at that time. And I was like, no, I'm just not going to do that.
That's when I canceled. That was when I canceled. It was my first movie I saw in Peru, Illinois.
Yeah.
It was Ant-Man and the Wasp. That's when I canceled it.
I think the last movie, okay, that was the last movie we reviewed on Sleepless that I used with MoviePass. The last movie I actually saw was Crazy Rich Asians, but that's beside the points.
And that guy who saw it,
that guy I saw it 40 times. I'm like, dude, this guy, like, I was probably in the theater with him at some point. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah. If you ever want to know why it's bad for like a company to monopolize so many other things, like Microsoft obtaining all these studios for video games, or Disney owning all of these studios for film production and everything, this is kind of a good reason why, because get somebody like Ted. Now, I'm not saying the CEOs of Microsoft or Disney are like these guys, but if you get a CEO like Ted Farnsworth or Mitch Lowe, who don't give a shit about you and will be like, nah, just deny them access to the app, deny them access to what they're paying a month to get our service to them, on purpose, and doing all these shady back deals to prevent you, the person that did your side of things, which is paying $9.95 a month to go see as many movies as you want once per day, just preventing you from doing that the whole month. Hell, for the rest of your subscription, even possibly. That is like very worrisome about like any of these companies that get this much power or get this much popularity, and it's just like, hey man, you get a crappy CEO in place, and they can do some shady shit like that to your subscription-based services. It's eventually led to the downfall, because it's like they just thought like, oh, we'll always be popular as an app. Meanwhile, they're not even realizing the money stack that they just like are setting on fire right behind them and everything. That whole last third of the documentary, it made me came to this. I love the first act. I thought the second act was by the numbers. That third act won it over for me, where I was like, no, this is actually a really solid documentary. And it was when they started exploring all the shady stuff.
I don't know if it would have fixed them. I don't know if it would have done anything. But what got me to cancel it ultimately was the stupid surge pricing.
Yeah.
Because the surge pricing, there was nothing more frustrating. I remember, and I'm in Peru, Illinois at the time. Population like 9,000 or whatever. It's 2:00 on a Thursday, I think. And I wanted to go see Ant-Man and the Wasp. And it's like, this is a popular showtime. I said, bullshit, nothing's popular at this theater out here. Number one, I haven't even walked inside, and I can promise you that. Number one. Number two, it was, you're paying $9.95 a month. They wanted $3.95 extra for the ticket. They wanted $3, so it was like, you're going to get charged $3.95 in addition to seeing this movie. Yeah. They'll fund your card, but you got to pay an extra $3.95. At that point, I'm like, I remember even thinking, like, I think I bit the bullet on it and saw it and paid that price, and then I canceled it right after the movie. Because my whole logic would be, I would have rather you upped it to $20 a month.
Yeah.
I would have rather you upped it to $20 a month, because I will still get the value out of that. I would have rather you said the $9.95 a month is done. I would have kept it. I think we even had a discussion at one point of what would the price point be where we would keep it. And I said $24.95.
I think I said 30. I was like, I'm cool with 30, because it's like, I mean, with us reviewing 2 to 3 movies a week, 1 week I can pay that back, because the movie theater I went to often when we were reviewing it in college was AMC, and that's $10 a ticket.
Yeah, and when it was $9.95, one ticket would cover the month. One ticket would cover it. And I remember even thinking, though, I'm like, I would have much rather them just up the price. I'm not paying this surge pricing shit. I already hate this shit with Ubers. When you're trying to get an Uber at a peak volume time, and it goes up in price. You're just trying to go
home and you have to pay more.
I know, so that's when I canceled it. I canceled it before you. I know that.
Yeah.
And I remember I was devastated when I did, but I'm like,
I was holding on for dear life, man. I was eating up as many crumbs as I could.
I feel like I think about like even just certain things in life, and it's like I really got out of the fire as the floor was starting to catch.
Yeah, I drove to a theater that was like 17 miles away, because I was like, well, I get to use MoviePass to see a movie there. It's just like, all right, I got a problem. I need to cancel this damn thing.
Meanwhile, I am like, I got my Regal Unlimited subscription, and it's like, oh, I pay for it on my second movie. I was like that one woman where it's like, I see 4 movies a month. and I get a great deal for it. Meanwhile, Joe is like an addict, just like.
Dude, I remember I tallied it. I think I saw 97 movies in 2018 because of
You
MoviePass.
should have been interviewed for this damn thing.
I
You really
honestly
should've.
was sitting there. I was like, man, hey, next documentary maker of MoviePass, or if 60 Minutes is watching our clip, get me on there, man. I'll give you the tea.
You probably saw. You might have even seen more than me,
Because
you go to more repeat showings. You see movies 2-3 times.
I do.
I don't generally do that.
That one dude who saw like the Avengers in parts. Who does
I didn't do
that?
anything like that. And here's the thing: I saw 97. And I'm counting the 97 movies, not like repeat viewings. I saw 97 movies individually, like on their own. I don't know, repeat viewings. That's probably in the hundreds somewhere. I don't even want to think about that.
Oh my god!
I have a document that tells me how many I watched. I think it was probably about 80. I think it was probably about 80, 85, something like that. We were among the heaviest users of the damn thing.
When I found out the Cardinal shuttle can take me to the theater, I was like, I know what I'm doing after class.
That's why we talk about this and we reminisce about this so fondly, because it'll never happen again.
Yeah.
Like,
No.
I think the surprise of this documentary, as we've noted before, is that like I was excited with this documentary too, and I'm not saying I was disappointed really in any regard, but I was excited for this documentary because I was thinking like, this is all, because every time like when I would have MoviePass discussions or people have brought it up before and stuff like that, I would always say the same thing. I would say it was gone way too soon. It was never built to last as a model, but I loved it because I got to see movies I got to see basically free movies, and some venture capitalists got hosed.
Yeah.
So it was basically the American fucking dream as far as I'm concerned. But so I was excited to see that in the documentary, but then you learn the real story and the origins and how Stacey Spikes and Hamay Watt got screwed.
Yeah.
And then it's like, I'm happy the venture capitalists lost, but this really sucks. At what a price. Like the little guy still lost too. The comparative little guy still lost. And that part made me sad about it. The sad reality of it.
We want to go into closing thoughts, and then we can share a little bit of our MoviePass stories.
That works for me. I guess I'll start just to get it out of the way and things like that and make room for you guys. But as I said before, there's a lot of predictable sort of hallmarks with this documentary too, in terms of the archival footage, the talking heads, the presentation and whatnot. Generally with documentaries, I have to try to really separate myself, be like, do I really like the story and that's why I like this documentary, or how's it being told? And I think it's told all right. It's told linearly, which is nice. But when the story's this good, follows two genuinely well-meaning individuals, and I learn a lot from it too, which I did with this, which was even surprising to me as somebody who, I mean, not only had the app and had the service, but covered it along with you, Joe. I kind of let things slide. And also at the end of the day too, like, how many times have we said MoviePass could have been a movie in itself? The whole concept, the whole rise and fall. Here it is. And overall, I think it's pretty good. I think you come away from really understanding the appeal, the success, the draw of the story, of the service, and you learn a lot on the way too. I give it 3 out of 4 stars. I think it's a uniformly solid documentary. I think it could have been better in some regards, some flaws ironed out, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was it's a story that needs to be told, especially because even for people tapped in like Joe and I, we only knew half the story that was told.
I'll go next. I mean, I did learn here about Stacey and Hamat, and I think that was probably the best thing about this documentary is their story is finally being told, because hell, I didn't know who they were. I thought Mitch and Loeb, because that's all I saw in my emails from MoviePass when it came to my subscription information, was those 2 names. I never saw Stacey and Hamat. So to finally have their, story be told, as well as, like, we're learning their side of everything, and everything they got screwed over by from Mitch and Ted. I think that very much is probably like why it's probably worth watching this documentary for anybody, especially if you were a MoviePass subscriber, or you still are if you jumped onto the new one. I was a little disappointed when it came to some of the interview aspects, like I said. Even I thought like they did a great job. Like I said, I enjoyed the employees and the fans of MoviePass, or the subscribers, and getting their side of the story. I just wish we got a little bit more, because like I think the Fire Festival documentary did such a great job of getting as many employees and their perspectives as much as possible, as well as Action Park, which I thought did a great job at finding all these people who used to attend that park and even the employees who used to work there. It was like, I just want a little bit more. It just kind of, it really is crazy because it's like, man, thinking back to all the documentaries we've been reviewing, and they've done such a great job at like grabbing all these people and their different points of view. And then we get this one, and it's like, it did a good job. Not a great job, but good. But a solid good job that I still think it's very much worth viewing and finding out what the hell was this point of history in 2017 to 2018 of MoviePass from its rise and fall in 8 months, basically. For me, it's a solid 3 out of 4 stars.
3 out of 4 stars, 3 big points that all you need to take away from this. One, venture capitalists like this, they're all effing parasites, and it's all bullshit artistry. It truly really is. Hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars flow through this country, all based on bullshit like you saw in this documentary. 2, your workplace is probably run kind of like a dictatorship, and that's kind of effed up, and maybe the workers should have a little bit more rights and like actual actionable way to assert their will. And 3, racism. This is how racism manifests in a way that isn't Jim Crow. This is literally textbook. It's, again, it blows my mind how much this story was so on its face, like, oh, this is like actually racist. how the erasure that we saw here, and that's how it manifested today, and how it still manifests in a lot in even more subtle ways than that. We ain't past it, folks. So I think this is a great movie just to really drive home those 3 points, because that's unfortunately how you don't get 90 movies in a single year for pennies on the film.
You're welcome, man. Ted and Mitch.
Yeah.
Well said. Well said. I think one of the guys who has a really elite quote in this thing, and I'm going to butcher it, but I'll paraphrase it, is Damon John, recognizable from Shark Tank. Damon John has a few bits in this movie, and he has a really good point, though, and it's quick. But he says, though, when the story of how Stacy and Hamay lost their company, and Damon says, this happens a lot with, and being a black man himself, a black entrepreneur, he says this happens with black entrepreneurs a lot. He said that like white men have about 95% of the capital that's necessary to grow a business, get funding, get loans, and things like that. And he says oftentimes he's like, African-American entrepreneurs do not have access to that. So they have to partner with somebody they're hoping retains their best interest. And the list of businesses that have been crippled, kneecapped, or dissolved because of this sort of predatory money at the expense of capital is a mile high and a mile wide. And I thought Damon John had a really astute point on that. And I think coming from him of all people, if you don't know his background, he started the FUBU clothing. That's what he started back in the 80s. His story is really fascinating too. So I was happy to see him in this documentary. He doesn't do a lot of films, so it was cool to see him.
He was one of the best like celebrity, I guess, interviewers they brought in, like, in terms of people they were like asking around, like outside of this industry. He was one of the better ones to bring in.
I agree. I like his perspective too, and I like him on Shark Tank. Moreover, though, if we want to share any MoviePass details, we can. I kind of gave away mine. You brought up the one of mine, was that when they implemented that ticket verification thing where you'd have to take the picture of the ticket before seeing the movie.
I wanted to know, how were they verifying that? Literally manually?
That's what it sounded like from the documentary.
Hundreds of thousands of people sending pictures, and your job is to just look at these pictures.
Dom,
it looks like a movie ticket.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was a guy just going through, just hitting approve. He wasn't even looking at the pictures.
Probably just hitting approve.
It didn't make any sense because you would send in the picture and then like immediately be like, all right, you're good to go. It's like, wait a minute, but how does this work? Like,
how does it know?
Like,
How does it? And the other thing is too, there was even a few times where like if I would take a picture of the ticket, I'd put it on the counter right away from the ticket taker, but I would put it on the counter like once I get in the theater, I put it on the counter and I flip it off and I take the picture. And then sometimes I would I would shiver or something and it would be a little blurry and I'm like, fuck you, send, and it'd be like approved and it's blurry, you can't even read it. I'm like, fuck you.
It's manual. You're right. It's got to be manual because they weren't investing in anything. They weren't investing in any infrastructure, any other expert personnel other than these poor sons of bitches who had to sit there and do that shit. Oh my God.
It probably wasn't approved. It probably was a bank that it went to, like a support ticket bank, and they just had to hit approve constantly. That was one of the things I did though.
Control
and then,
A,
like,
accept. Control
the straw
A,
that broke
accept.
the camel's back was the first time they tried to get me to pay an extra fee on top of the ticket. I'm like, you dumb sons of bitches. You should have just told me that my subscription was going up $10 a month. I would have stayed for that. But I'm like, no, this insidious kind of shit. And especially because, too, this is the other thing. It's not like Stubs, which I have now. It's not like Stubs where I can go ahead from my house and buy the ticket for next week. That's generally what I do. I buy them a week in advance just so I can kind of know my schedule for the next week and the weekend. And I can cancel them super easy. I'm not putting any money down either. I already pay a flat rate of $20 a month. So that's why I do it. But my point being, though, is I can buy the Stubs tickets from home. Yeah. With MoviePass, it was location-based. So you had to be at the theater. You could not get it from your house. You had to be in the literal parking lot of the theater because the app had to know that you were actually planning on seeing this movie. You weren't just erroneously trying to get the cost of a movie ticket loaded on this pay-as-you-go debit card. Yeah. That was the other part of it. So I'm like, I already, in order to use this thing, I have to go. I'm planning to go to the movie. I have to drive and go to the theater in order to buy the ticket from this service to begin with. And when I'm already here, that's when you're going to stick me with that $3-4 fee. Fuck you. Like, that was really because that's when I remember like watching Ant-Man and the Wasp thinking like, why does this mortally offend me? And then I'm like, okay, this is why. Okay, I have reason. Why would I rather pay $20 a month than get charged $4 extra? And that's the reason. That's the pure and simple reason. It's not even like Uber, where Uber is just always a different rate every time, depending on conditions, traffic, time of day, time of night. It's not like that. It's a totally different concept.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of got mine during the review, but the movie I went to go see that was like 17 miles away was Sorry to Bother You, because for some reason, this was also something that was weirdly happening, is that certain theaters were blocking MoviePass from seeing stuff at their location.
That happened, yeah.
I mean, like, again, I mean, there was like so many things too. I was thinking about this documentary, I'm like, man, they didn't even go over that. Damn. But yeah, I had to drive 17 miles because I wanted to see Sorry to Bother You, and I was just like, oh, I get to use MoviePass, not realizing like, if I were to go see like a matinee show like right down the street, I would save money and gas, honestly.
Yeah. You were in the cult, bro.